Welcome to the Limitless Ladies Network, a women's holistic wellness podcast where our mission is to help women build holistic self-care. The following disclaimer applies to all episodes and content shared on this show. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the host and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of Limitless Ladies Network or its affiliates. The information and advice provided on this podcast are for general educational purposes only and should not be considered as professional medical, nutritional, or therapeutic advice. The content shared on this podcast is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease or health condition. Listeners are advised to consult with a qualified healthcare professional before making any changes to their diet, lifestyle, or health routine. By listening to this podcast, you acknowledge that you are aware of the limitations and potential risks associated with the information and advice shared on this show. You release and hold harmless Limitless Ladies Network, its hosts, guests, and affiliates from any liability for any damages, losses, or injuries that may result from the use of the information and advice provided on this podcast. Hello, and welcome to the Limitless Ladies Network, where our mission is to help women build holistic, empathetic self-care. Today's episode is sponsored by Soroptimist International of Willimantic, which means best for women. Soroptimist is actually has an international mission to help women and girls live to their dreams. Soroptimist is a global volunteer organization that provides women and girls access to education and training that they need to achieve economic empowerment. There are many local and global projects that we use to support women. However, the two hallmark projects that we do are Live Your Dream Award, which is a cash award for women seeking to improve their economic situation through additional education and training. And the second is the Dream Grant, which is to fund them to licenses and fees and things like that they might need to also continue their education. So I highly recommend that you consider joining this worthwhile organization by visiting soroptimistwillimantic.org to learn more about how you can join this mission to improve the lives of women and girls. And next year, this club is actually celebrating its 60th year just for our club. So exciting times. And I am honored today to have with me Susan Noviello. Did I say that correctly?
Yes, you did.
Excellent. Susan is with the Salvation Army's anti-trafficking program coordinator. And we're here basically to have a very open and candid discussion about a serious topic on human trafficking. And I feel as it's something that we really should all be really more cognizant about what's happening all around us, because it just seems to be flying underneath the radar. So welcome, Susan.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Thank you. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing with the Salvation Army and the Bloom Initiative.
So the Bloom Initiative was established in the year 2017 under the Salvation Army in Hartford. We were one of the first anti-human trafficking programs to come into Connecticut. And many people aren't familiar, but after the wall fell over in Europe, trafficking exploded worldwide. So trafficking has been in existence since the beginning of time. And the Salvation Army did begin in 1865 in England. And one of the first populations that they did serve was the trafficking population. What we do here at the Bloom Initiative is we bring prevention and awareness, training and discussions, as we're doing right now. We also do comprehensive case management work where we assist survivors of trafficking to become self-sustaining and bring them back into the community. And we also have street outreaches that we do. Primarily right now, we're focusing in the city of Hartford, but we have worked in Willimantic as well.
Wow, that's a very great mission that you have to help all those people. So I think that there's kind of a misconception really about what human trafficking is. So can you just shed a little bit more light on truly what the definition of human trafficking is and like how that's impacted specifically in Connecticut?
Right. So there's different types of trafficking. There's labor trafficking, there's sex trafficking, there's military trafficking, there's organ trafficking. So we focus mostly here in Connecticut. I haven't done anything beyond labor and sex trafficking. But in order for it to be um, deemed as trafficking, it has to have the word force, fraud, or coercion. Um, in that the person has experienced either force, fraud, or coercion, whether labor, sex, for organs, or military. So they were forced into it, they were frauded into it, or they were coerced into doing what they did not want to do in exchange for money.
Mm.
So the word trafficking is, I believe it is a little misleading. Yes, people do get moved from one place to the other. However, in Connecticut, that is not the most, even though we have the 95 corridor, and it does happen between Boston and New York, where people are being moved for the purpose of trafficking. We don't find that to be the basis of our clientele or what other human trafficking agencies are seeing in Connecticut. They're not being moved from place to place. The most common form of trafficking or being forced, frauded, or coerced into trafficking is usually through a family member or through someone, a boyfriend.
Wow. That's very surprising to hear that it's
It's not
someone so close that you would know that would actually put you in that situation.
absolutely, absolutely. And so, no, it's not like the movies show where someone finds you and or buys you, puts you in a truck, and moves you. It's through there. A financial crisis comes along, and someone sees an opportunity to make money through
Wow.
another person, and you often to fulfill a drug habit. Gangs, it's very common with gangs now. Initiations are
Mm.
trafficking, and so usually there is some kind of financial crisis, and someone has a great idea to use another person to get that financial need met.
Wow, that is just mind blowing. I'm shocked at that, that it's a family member, right? So is it, I know boyfriends, right? That makes sense, but when it comes to family members, are you seeing that it is distant relatives or something, or is it really close family members?
Mothers are common. Mothers who are using. Now,
Wow.
today, using a substance today is not what it used to be with fentanyl coming onto the scene. So fentanyl has made any drug that anybody's on more addictive, and it has addictive properties of its own.
Mhm.
And let's say you want to just go, let's say someone's drug of choice is heroin or crack. They've got no choice. Fentanyl is already in it. So fentanyl is included because the drug dealers are using it to make the drug more addictive to the user. And it's a perfect storm because I've talked to people who want to get off of the drug and they say, with fentanyl, I just can't. They may have been clean before for a few years, gotten back on. They say, I go to get clean now, and the fentanyl is just making it nearly impossible.
Wow. So for those people that are getting someone who's helping them to supply their addiction, they're also, injecting them or maybe forcing them to do those drugs as well. So then they become addicted, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And the ones we have on case management, I will have to say, are not using.
That's
It's
good.
very hard to engage in case management with anybody who's using drugs. So
Mm.
that's part of our street outreach. That's where we meet that population.
Okay.
But many of the survivors that we deal with that make it to case management have never even used drugs. So they're out there, they're under the force, fraud, or coercion of being exchanged, but they're not drug users themselves.
Well, that's good because that means that you can work with them a little bit easier, right? Makes sense. They're more
Yes,
willing to try to better themselves and kind of realize that they've been in this bad situation. They've been forced or coerced, right, to be able to do that. So, in all of the cases, and I'm sure you've worked with tons of cases of people, are there any specific signs that someone might be able to see that they're being put into that situation? Because from what I've heard, it almost sounds, especially if it's a family member, right? You might not realize that you're being put into that situation.
Yes, and often the victims are the last to know. They're not realizing they thought they've made a choice and they carry shame with it, but they don't realize that they made that choice because there would have been a huge penalty for not making that choice, and they still put the responsibility on themselves, and they'll see it was a choice of mine, yes, but you would have never done it if you weren't brought into force, fraud, or coercion. So what are the signs? It depends. It can vary. But let's look at the most vulnerable, our young, our youth. They're still, one of the things are they still go to school, and they're being trafficked at the same time.
Wow.
So they may be telling their parents, "I'm working at Dunkin' Donuts," and they're bringing a lot of cash home, but they're being trafficked, and they're still living a normal life. They're still putting a normal front on. They're often trained by their trafficker what to say to other people. So they're convinced to live a life of normalcy.
Wow.
So they are, you have to tell your parents everything's all right. You have to work hard on their grades. We've heard traffickers will ask their victims to bring their test grades to them to make sure their grades are staying up. So there's nothing that's going to give a red flag, and they'll pay for it if their grades go down. So they're taught to perform high. So it can look very normal. But they often go into isolation. So that is, they're going to start isolating themselves more and more from people, their friends, their family, because they feel that they can't relate. They feel that they don't fit in. They don't want anybody to pick up on what they're doing. So you'll see some isolation. Once in a while, I see something that's very common, a branding of a tattoo on the neck, or etched words etched in a knife in someone's back where there's scars now, with the word worthless or the trafficker's name. So that's something that we see that's common. Working or being very tired because they're working hard, not, losing the light in their eyes. That's something that's very concerning. Sometimes hotel keys, sometimes multiple phones. Trafficker will give them another phone, of course, not to use their own phone. So those can be also signs as well.
Wow. So are you also seeing that there are certain people that are more vulnerable to this? I mean, it's going to be difficult because it's a family member, it sounds like, that is coercing somebody into doing this for their own needs. But are there more people that you're finding that are susceptible to?
Yes. So what makes someone vulnerable to trafficking? Being in a financial crisis and wanting more, not having the things that maybe other people, their peers or their age have, or that they think that, they see on social media. Purses, clothes, sneakers, whatever it may be, can make someone very vulnerable to fall and follow the carrot, which is more money, or getting your nails done, whatever it may be. It does not take long to get groomed. It's something that they experience is called Stockholm syndrome, and which comes from Stockholm, Greece. Stockholm, Sweden, where bank robbers groomed their hostages into doing what they wanted to do in less than 24 hours. They were at their beck and call, so it can come very quick.
That is fast in 24 hours.
It's very fast. So all you have to do is connect a trauma with a comfort. So I'm now in trauma. I was given a comfort. I'm now trauma bonded to whoever gave me the comfort. I feel safe. They're going to take care of me. Even if they're putting me in the trauma and causing the trauma situation, because they have given me a comfort that they're my safety. So I'm going to fawn them. So a trauma response is fight, flight, freeze, or fawn.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So a fawn is I'm going to appease. I'm going to appease so I'm safe. So
Mm-hmm.
they get into a fawning mode at that point. So, what makes someone vulnerable and how to prevent it, we have to teach our young people how to say no,
Yes.
how to not appease the bully,
Yep.
and for your safety to say no and stand up and take consequences.
Yeah.
uh, and we do that very young with our children. No, we don't follow the crowd. We say no, and we'll go into isolation rather than following the crowd,
Yeah.
to do the wrong thing. So a lot of parents breed people pleasers because they want their kids to please them. They're a narcissist, they're a bully themselves. And so that will make someone very vulnerable to being trafficked.
Yeah.
If we bully our kids into doing what we want, and if we force them to not be their own person and to please us and our own wants. A trafficker, I remember a trafficker saying at one point, I would go to the mall and I'd look for girls and I'd say, "Oh, you have pretty eyes." And if they looked down, I knew I had them. If they looked me in the eye and said, "Thank you," and moved on, then they were too confident
Wow.
for me to groom, and I wasn't going to bother. So we need to teach our young people confidence. We need to teach them how to stand up, be confident in who they are. Know that if they don't have what they want right now, we work on a system of delayed gratification. We work hard, we stay focused, we will have what we want, and give them
Yeah.
that hope.
In terms of locations for these, you mentioned a mall. So are there certain areas, because you're in Hartford, you said, and you're
We're
just on the streets looking for, survivors or trying to pull them away from a trafficker. Are there certain areas that they have, from your cases that you've worked with, where the trafficker has actually gone? You mentioned schools, sounds pretty common, right? They'll wait for them outside the school. Are there any other areas?
The internet is very common. Of
Mm,
course, so when we're doing the outreach, we are dealing with the population that has fallen into the drug addiction and the trafficking.
yeah.
But there are vulnerable populations that don't have anything to do with drugs, and so gangs, that will be still in your inner neighborhoods.
Mhm.
The internet is very common, so they will come across like they're a boyfriend. Sometimes give you even a false picture of who they are. They're nothing of who they're appearing to be. I've seen on a lot of trafficking websites that I've been able to look over, they will make it like they're a very kind and caring person. They will post, gifts and pictures of, I hope you're having a good day. You can get through this day. You'll get over it. Keep your head up. Those types of things. Or I'm here for you if you need to talk. I'm a safe place. They'll do things like that to make them like they're a caring person,
All
and
right.
that's part of the bait. Parties have become very common, where people are being trafficked, and we're talking in the upscale, upper end neighborhoods. You bring the beer, you bring the weed, you bring the girl,
Wow.
and so it's become common practice for a party to be a scene where someone vulnerable can get caught up in. Um, and um, and of course, knowing what a healthy relationship is. A healthy relationship does not say or does not fall for, hey, if we just do this for a small amount of time, we're going to get out of debt and we can buy a house and we'll never have to work again. It's
Yeah.
unrealistic. It's unrealistic. You
Right.
can make a lot of money by doing this, but you're also going to run yourself ragged and your health is going to suffer, and you're not going to be able to do this forever or long enough to get out of debt, buy the house, and everything else. So that's not what takes place in healthy relationships. And so teaching our young people what a healthy relationship looks like
Yeah.
and prevent them from being trafficked.
And is it mostly younger like boys, girls, younger, middle aged, I guess middle school, high school, college, or even older? Like, what are you seeing in terms of
Well,
age?
well, by the time that I get them, they may be engaging um, in sex work, but it's because they were trafficked when they were younger. And so to me, that's still a victim of trafficking. They
Mhm.
never would be doing what they're doing
Right.
if they weren't brought into this lifestyle and coerced into this lifestyle. So, yes, I'm noticing maybe I'm getting them when they're older. And sometimes I get people who are not involved in sex work, but the light bulb went on. Hey, I was trafficked.
Yeah.
I was a victim and I saw myself as a willing participant, but now I realize I was really forced into it. So sometimes they're the last ones to know, the ones that are actually being trafficked. So initially, yes, they're usually young,
Yeah.
but it can continue on.
Wow. So tell me a little bit about your program. So you do casework. What does that look like?
Well, so it's a community that failed someone. It was a community of people that weren't there to support, encourage,
Hmm.
um, them to take the right path or to, to help them through a difficult time. And so if a community failed them, it's going to take a community to help them come out and enter back into society in a healthy manner. And so we do offer services, direct services, to determine whatever the needs are. A lot of people come, their IDs have been taken away from them, so they can't work. They don't have ID. They can't get social services. So sometimes the first thing we do is get them an ID, get them signed up with social services. After that, we try to connect them with a community of support. And we try to get health care, mental health care, anybody who's going to support them in any area they need, job placement, getting back to school. So we will surround them with a community of providers to help them and help them in moving forward and in what they need. Sometimes there's equestrian, they can take equestrian riding lessons, and at the same time, it's therapeutic. It's combined with the therapy of trauma.
It
So
is.
there's different ways that we can go and reach out into the community to get our support.
That's fantastic that you have all of those resources for those people to help boost their self-esteem because that's truly, they get beaten down from the trauma, right? So it's good that they have various different places to go to get that comfort, right? And get that support that they need. That's fantastic. Is there anything else on the case kind of process that you'd want to share? Or is that pretty
So we do something that's called a point in time assessment. So we assess that they're moving forward every month. But now in human trafficking, when we started, it used to be get them away from their trafficker, move them to another state. And we found if they do have any support, they still really want to be in their comfort area.
yeah.
And so it's something we do have. We do have a couple of homes in Connecticut that are just for victims of trafficking. And so we do have the availability. It's not through Bloom, it's another agency that we work with where they're actually able to stay in a home for several months, I think up to a couple of years. They're able to stay there. They're also able to get a job. They have a social enterprise, so they get to work. They have a title on their resume. They're able to have a pet that stays with them while they're in the home. So there's an opportunity to, if they really need assistance and they don't have a home, to get back out a full encompassing support, wraparound support that they're able to receive. So we do have that if need be. If not, we help the women find their own apartment if they choose not to go into a program. We help them We stay along through the tough times. When someone experiences trauma, they also have trauma reactions to normal incidences that happen in life, the challenging, finding an apartment, finding a job. These are very hard for people who have been through that. So we help them through that process and empower them.
That's fantastic. It sounds like a very holistic, well-rounded program that you have going on to get them and make sure that they have someone that they can do to check in to make sure that they're still moving forward in a positive direction. So,
We wouldn't be able to do it without the community of service providers that are out there. It does take a village.
oh yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like you've got a really good village put in place. So that's great. This has been great, very informative and eye-opening, I think, to all of the things that are happening around us and how we need to, as parents, and even knowing various different families and in the communities, just to be aware of, how the young community is kind of interacting and how they're doing, and really kind of stay in touch with that. So. Thank you, Susan, for joining me today and sharing all this insightful information. It's been great.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and I also want to give a special thank you out to Soroptimist International Willimantic again, and I highly encourage you to check out their organization to help educate and support young girls and women and empower their futures. You can check out their website at soroptimistwillimantic.org. And I also encourage you to check out our Limitless Ladies Network website, where you can follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and of course this podcast to learn some more information on some great topics that we have coming up. And of course, to check out the Salvation Army website, is that where we would find more information on Bloom?
Yes, the Greater Hartford Salvation Army website.
Excellent.
Look up Greater Hartford Salvation Army, and Bloom is there.
Excellent. Thank you. This has been fantastic.
You're welcome.